Either you're getting a new hamster for the first time, or you just want to improve and update your care. Hamsters require a lot, from a suitably sized cage to safe and deep enough bedding. I'm going to guide you to what basic things you need for your hamster. Even though hamsters are small, they require a lot of space. In the UK, it is recommended that you get a cage which is 100 by 50 centimetres. Something this size can be hard to get, as local pet shops sell cages which are too small for hamsters. They're very colourful and they're very targeted to kids, but a lot of times you will not find a cage that is the suitable size for hamsters. However, suitably sized cages for hamsters are out there. You can get a lot on Amazon, and it is very rarely that you can get something that is suitably sized for a hamster in a pet shop. Sometimes they are marketed for guinea pigs, which still are too small for guinea pigs. However, you can use something that's marketed towards guinea pigs for your hamster because it may be that equivalent size. So they are out there. I will list a load of cages which are a suitable size and ones that you can find online, such as Amazon, and just ones you can look at. But they are out there. But like I said, they are really hard to find at your pet shop, as they do advertise and they do sell cages that are way too small and are targeted for children. Having a cage which is far too small for a hamster can result in stress, cage biting, cage pacing, monkey barring and general distress. This is because hamsters run approximately 5 miles an hour, which can be hard if they don't have an appropriate wheel or big enough space. Also, you do have to keep into account that hamsters need a lot of things in their cage. So if you have a cage which is way too small, you're not going to be able to fit in that wheel that is the appropriate size, or enough bedding, or enough enrichment for them. So you do need to think about, the bigger the cage, the better, because the more enrichment and the more, enjoyment you can give to your hamster. Bedding is such an important part of your basic hamster care. Hamsters need at least 10 inches of bedding. Now, this is because hamsters burrow and they need this much bedding to do so. Not having enough bedding can cause stress, as, like I said, hamsters burrow, and this is something they naturally do and wild hamsters do. And if they don't have that thick enough bedding, they're not going to be able to burrow all the way down and make little tiny sleeping pockets for themselves. So it's so important to have enough bedding and to have that minimum of 10 inches. You'll need to choose bedding which is safe for the hamster, and that can be easily digestible if they do accidentally digest it. Now, hamsters do put food in their cheeks, so they have little pockets in their cheeks, which is where they kind of hoard their food, and they'll take food from the bowl and pop it in, their bedding or their little sleeping area, or wherever they feel is safe. Now, sometimes when they do this, they do also move bedding around, so they will put bedding in their cheeks, and sometimes they can, accidentally swallow it, or, it'll just sit in their cheeks until they've moved it. If you have a bedding that is really unsafe, that can easily twist inside their mouth or twist around their limbs, that's going to get caught in their cheeks, and if they do accidentally swallow it, it can cause some really bad digestive issues and some internal issues inside their body. That's why it's really important to pick a bedding that is safe and something that, like I said, is easily digestible and something that will not cause stress to them. What you need to stay away from is anything that has a cotton texture. Now, a cotton texture is something that can twist around, or something that's not digestible. You need to stay away from sawdust bedding. Now, this can be really dusty. Even if it's a sawdust that says it's dust extracted, that can still be quite dusty and dangerous. It's also sharp and can cause injuries. Like I said, this is really hard because a lot of pet shops advertise a lot of products that are unsafe for hamsters. So it's really important that you do your own research into what is safe. But like I said, stay away from sawdust and stay away from anything that's cotton or wool or fabric or anything like that. I recommend is tea bag bedding, anything paper based, or aspen bedding. Those are just a few to name. However, I have used these type of textures in the past and I know they're really safe, and my hamster in the past has really loved them and gotten on well with them. Now, the next thing that you will need to put in your hamster enclosure is a hamster wheel. Now, for Syrian hamsters, they require at least 27 centimetres. Small dwarf hamsters such as winter whites, Robovskis and Chinese, they require between 22 and 25 centimetres. Having a wheel that is too small can cause their back to curve, which causes stress on their spine and can cause serious injuries and serious complications down the road. So please, please, please get a wheel that is a minimum requirement. Now, you can never get a wheel that is too big for them. As long as they can push it and run on it, is perfect. You just need a wheel that is not going to have their back arching. And like I said, Syrian hamsters require 27 centimetres at least, and the majority of small dwarfs such as Robovskis, Winter Whites and Chinese require between 22 and 25. Something that you do need to stay away from are hamster balls. So hamster balls are incredibly dangerous as they have poor ventilation and they have holes. Even if you get a really large ball, it still is dangerous. Hamsters' feet can get caught in the holes, which can cause, breaking of limbs. Sometimes if they get their claws stuck in there, their claws can be forcibly taken out, ripped out, which is horrendous. Also, hamsters have glands and whiskers. Now, hamsters will scent things around them and they use that as orientation. So if they're in a hamster ball and they can't smell anything because of the poor ventilation, they can get really disorientated and really, really stressed. As also, if hamster balls are too small as well, their back can curve, which, like hamster balls being too small, can cause really bad spinal injuries. But like I said, even if it's a big ball, it's still going to cause a lot of dangerous issues, and it's not something worth risking. Hamsters are animals of prey, which means if they feel dangerous, they need to be able to run away and hide or burrow. Now, if they're in a hamster ball and they feel danger, they can't do that, which is going to cause even more stress for them. And it's just going to cause a lot of injuries and a lot of stress. And it's just not something worth doing. Now, what I do recommend instead, if you want to get your hamster out, is to just get a small playpen. You can get like a little kid's playpen, which, some people put like balls in for their children. Just get an empty playpen, pop them in that, pop their wheel in that, and a lot of enrichment and everything like that. And that is something that is really it's something that is not going to stress them and something that they can enjoy, and it's something where you can get them out of their cage and they can free roam and run around in a safely enclosed space. That is something I would recommend over hamster balls. Hamster balls are just marketed and they're horrendous, and they're really not something I would recommend. Food is something that every animal needs and can be really hard to figure out what to purchase for your hamsters. Hamsters need a very varied diet, and it can be really hard to find something at the pet shop, as either you'll get something really plain and basic like pellets, or you'll get something really colourful and sugary, which is just really not healthy for them. A really good food that I recommend is Mr. Johnson's Supreme Hamster and Gerbil Mix. You can find that on Amazon. Now, that's really good because it's enriched with lots of different seeds and lots of different healthy nuggets and such like that, which is a really nice varied diet for them. Something I also recommend is Ontario's Hamster Food Safety List. This is a list that gets updated every single year, and it's a list of the unsafe and safe foods that you can give to your hamster. I will post this list down below, but it is something that I've used all the time, and I know a lot of people in the hamster community use and swear by. It's just a really, really good guide if you want to give your hamster a treat or a bit of fresh veg or anything like that. You'll know exactly what is poisonous to them, what is safe to them, what you need to give in moderation, and what you can give. It's a really, really, really good list to have. So I will post that down below, but like I said, that is something that you should look at also. Hamsters also require fresh water daily. You can either give them that in a little dish or a water bottle, but just make sure you replenish that every day and make sure they have clean water. Make sure you wipe the dish down and all of that. A lot of times if you use a water dish, which I've noticed, is hamsters will sometimes put their food in the water dish. So it's really important to make sure you clean that out regularly every day. Make sure you give it a wipe and just replenish it for them. Grooming is something that a lot of people talk about. Hamsters are self-cleaning, so you don't have to groom them. I've had a long-haired hamster in the past, and he was very clean. We had a really strong bond, and he was very, very good with people. So sometimes I did get a little brush for him and just brushed his fur because he was a long hair, and sometimes things would tangle in his hair. However, on a general basis, you don't need to do anything to groom your hamster. They are self-cleaning. What I do recommend is getting something called a sand bath. Now, sand bath is literally a safe sand substrate which you can get from a pet shop or online. I pop that in a little tub and put it in their enclosure, and they will go in that and they will clean themselves. All the excess oils that they gather up from the day, they'll go in there and it'll get them off them. Sometimes they'll also pee and poo in the sand, which in my opinion is really good because it's really easy to spot clean. You can just kind of sift out the peed and pooed sand and put it back in. You also need to pick a safe sand. You can't just use any regular sand. You need a sand that doesn't have colours, dyes, isn't dusty, doesn't have calcium. I use a reptile sand which has no colours, dyes or calcium, and that's been really good. You can also use like a children's play sand, however you do need to sanitise that by sifting it and baking it. So generally I just go for the reptile sand because I know it's good to go. So hamster nails will generally stay trim and short as long as you have a lot of enrichment and a lot of textures that they can climb on and naturally trim their nails. However, if their nails do get too long, they can curve and go into their paw, which can be really, really dangerous and really uncomfortable for them. You can clip them yourself. You can do that safely. However, I just recommend, going to a vet and having it done for you. Hamsters' teeth are also something that constantly grow. A sign of healthy hamster teeth are yellow. If they're white, that normally is a sign that something's going on that shouldn't be going on, that they're either unhealthy or they're deficient or anything like that. So if they're bright yellow or bright orange, then you know they're really healthy teeth. Now, like I've said with the claws, as long as you have a lot of enrichment and a lot of textures, they can naturally trim their teeth down. However, if they do get too long, their front two teeth especially can overgrow and go through their bottom lip, their bottom mouth bit. Now, before that even gets to that, if you notice that they're really long, you cannot trim them yourself. It's just something that is just dangerous and just really hard to do. So please go to an exotic vet and they can do it really safely for you and they can get that done and sorted. A lot of people do ask me how often they should deep clean their hamster enclosures. Now, hamsters do mark their territory by peeing and pooing in certain areas. They do carry food around in their pouches and unload it in spaces where they feel are safe from prey and safe from being taken away. And they do burrow, and they have certain burrows that they go to all the time. Hamsters do have glands. Syrian hamsters have 2 glands near their hips, and dwarf hamsters have 1 gland on their belly. Now they use these glands to scent and orientate themselves around their cage. They also, like I said, use their whiskers, and they can pick up on certain smells and they can know exactly where to go and what everything is. So if you regularly deep cleaned, it would cause your hamster a lot of stress because they wouldn't know where, they'd be very disorientated and wouldn't know where things are. Now, however, you can do something which a lot of people know as spot cleaning. This is something you can do regularly, where you just pick up where they regularly poo and pee at, and you can get rid of that. That'll be a huge tell just by how dark bedding is and how kind of like smelly it is, and that's where you know where to pick and replenish. The big question: can hamsters be housed together? Now, in the wild, Syrian hamsters and Chinese hamsters would be solitary, and dwarf hamsters, or some dwarf hamsters, would be social. Now, the only reason these dwarf hamsters were social was mainly for 2 things: reproduction and just to be safe. However, the hamsters that we have are domesticated and there is no need for them to be housed together, and they should not be housed together whatsoever. A lot of pet shops will advertise that some hamsters can be housed together. I have seen that some pet shops have advertised dwarf hamsters as being able to be housed together when they're babies, and then when they grow older that you should separate them. However, there is that huge risk where hamsters will fight and there will be an eventual death. Hamsters are hugely territorial, and even though if they were litter mates or they were siblings, I just would not recommend it. It's something I tell people that they should never be housed together, because there is basically that 99% possibility that they will, fight and kill each other. So it's just not worth it. It's not something that domestic hamsters are used to, not something they should do. Like I said, the majority of hamsters in the wild are solitary. There's even a really lovely documentary by David Attenborough where there is a clip, I think it's called Seven Worlds or something like that, where there's a clip with wild hamsters, and they're 2 wild hamsters that are trying to take food and they fight. and that is literally what they would do. They would fight over territory and they'd fight over food. So even though our hamsters are domesticated and there's no need for them, just don't do it at all. It's not something that is, you know, cute or friendly. It's something that will stress them out immensely. And it's just not, even though a pet shop may say that it's okay, don't do it. It's not worth the risk of anything like that. And it goes the same as, even if you have two hamsters that are in separate cages and they're nowhere near each other, please don't get them out and make them socialise with each other, because they'll do the exact same thing as if they did if they were in a cage together. They will fight, they're territorial, and it's really not a pleasant thing to do. So like I said, it's a huge question, it's a huge debate that everyone has, but please do not house your hamsters together. I hope that this video was helpful. I thought it would be a really good idea to do a basic guide video. Now, I'm not an expert, I don't claim to be an expert whatsoever, but these things are just typical and basic care needs for your hamster, and I think it's just a really useful idea to do a video, and for my first video to be basically hamster care. I really recommend doing a lot of extra research. There's a lot of other creators on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube that have a lot of really helpful tips. I really hope you enjoyed it, like I've said, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.